Welcome to this special session of Speed Training Secrets brought to you by athleticquickness.com. This series of audio seminars will teach you the revolutionary breakthroughs in speed and quickness training that will unlock the blazing speed found in muscle fibers that have been totally ignored by coaches, trainers, and athletes. Most athletes know how to get stronger or increase endurance, but very few know how to get faster. You are about to discover how simple 3-minute isometric exercises will condition your muscles for speed and quickness like never before, and how to avoid the same mistakes others are making when training for speed. You'll ask yourself, how can something be so simple and so powerful and yet so often ignored? Sometimes we make the excuse that speed is something we are born with and can't be changed. But the fact is, muscles can be conditioned for blazing speed and quickness as long as you do it properly. And I am not just talking about running speed. Fast muscles make the unbeatable difference in running, kicking, throwing, jumping, swinging a bat, golf club or tennis racket, and just about any other sports-related skill you can think of. There is no substitute for blazing speed to ignite your team, turn your game around, or just have a great time. Even your athletic career will be affected by how fast you are. You are about to discover what athletes have been trying to figure out their entire careers: how to get their muscles to be fast. Hi, I'm Dr. Larry Van Such, the developer and author of the various speed training programs found at athleticquickness.com. For the past 10 years, I have been on a quest to educate and train athletes and sports players of all ages and fitness levels to condition their muscles and nervous systems in a way that will give them new levels of speed and quickness like they have never experienced before. Thousands have achieved incredible results of muscle speed in their athletic performance by using these simple isometric exercises the way we teach them. You will soon discover, as have thousands of others, that this is by far the most effective speed training program you will ever find. Hello again, I'm Dr. Larry Van Such, and today I want to talk to you about isometric training and why I believe it is the best speed training technique available today. There are a lot of misconceptions regarding isometrics and its value as a training strategy. And before I get into some of these misconceptions, I want to first explain to you what isometric training is. Isometric training is a training strategy where you apply a constant force with your muscles for about 10 seconds. With isometrics, there are no repetitions involved, as in weight training and plyometric training, and so the lengths of your muscles never change. A good example of this is if you held a 20-pound weight in your right arm and performed a biceps curl, and held a position about halfway up without moving your arm for 10 seconds. At this point, your arm is no longer moving, but a force is still being applied. The way isometrics was taught years ago dealt strictly with using weights as the resistance aid and not resistance bands. And still today, when you mention isometrics to coaches, trainers, and athletes, that's the only thing they think about. One area of isometrics that these people are familiar with is using isometrics to help athletes get past a sticking point in their bench press. This is where the coaches would study their technique and figure out where in the repetition they were the weakest, and then they would make them hold the bar at that position for as long as possible. But our programs don't teach using isometrics with weights. Instead, we teach isometrics using the resistance band for resistance, and there's a very important reason for doing this, which I'll explain to you in a minute. Now, resistance bands aren't necessarily new. You will see people working with them all the time, but you don't exactly hear anyone claiming to have made a significant breakthrough in their speed by using them, such as dropping their 40-yard dash time by 0.3 of a second or more. And the reason for this, I believe, goes back to what I call a weightlifting strategy and a weightlifting mentality. A lot of people are so conditioned to do repetitions with every type of exercise. For example, performing dumbbell curls, bench presses, jumping up and down off of boxes over and over again as in plyometric training, that when they get a resistance band in their hands, they do the same thing. They start forcing their muscles through repetitions. And I am here to tell you that if that's the case, performing repetitions with resistance bands will not make your muscles contract any faster either. So let me summarize for you what I have said so far. Isometric training with weights won't help you get faster, and using resistance bands with a weightlifting strategy, that is, performing repetitions with them, won't work either. It's only the combination of isometric training with resistance bands that make muscles contract faster. And this is what I believe many so-called speed training experts, trainers, coaches, and athletes never take into consideration. Again, when you mention isometrics, they immediately think of using weights for resistance. This won't work for speed. And when you mention resistance bands, they immediately think of performing repetitions with them, which again won't work either. Now back to isometric training with the resistance band. I want to give you a little insight as to how and why the programs work. So let me start out by asking you a question. If you were to stretch a simple rubber band from the ground up to about 3 feet, and at the same time you release the top end of the band, you dropped a barbell plate weighing about 10 pounds from the same distance, which do you think would hit the ground first? Well, in case you're wondering, it's the rubber band. In fact, it wouldn't even be close. This is because in this example, we are dealing with two very different types of forces. Or for those of you interested in physics, two very different types of energy. The two energy types are gravitational energy, which is found in weights, and elastic energy, which is found in rubber bands. Now, you don't have to understand any of this to actually benefit from it, but sometimes it's nice to know why something works. And the reason why a stretched rubber band will beat a barbell plate or dumbbell to the ground every time is because the acceleration properties that exist within a rubber band are far superior to the acceleration properties that exist within weights. Weights have a standard acceleration known as the acceleration of gravity, which for you physics students out there will remember is 9.8 meters per second squared, or 32.2 feet per second squared. But the acceleration properties found within our resistance bands is many times greater than this. And this makes them unquestionably the best speed training tool you'll ever find, if you know how to take advantage of this fact. Now, here's how it applies to speed training. You're going to like this. Let's start out again by taking that simple rubber band. You stretch it apart and then release one end of it. What happens? Well, the rubber band contracts back toward you, doesn't it? And with amazing speed, too. Now, imagine taking a very large rubber band, like a resistance band that you see at your local gym. You stretch it apart, and instead of letting go of one end, you held it apart for 10 seconds. What do you think is happening now? Well, what's happening is that the elastic energy properties that exist within the stretched rubber band, the speed of contraction properties, if you will, get downloaded or transferred directly into the muscles that are opposing it. This information is now being stored in your muscle memory. So in effect, you are training or programming your muscles to respond with the same acceleration as the resistance band, and that is to contract with amazing speed when stretched. And the reason why your muscles will do this is because they are elastic in nature as well. They too share similar qualities like a rubber band. But the thing to understand here is that you can never get this elastic contracting effect through weight training or plyometric training, and I'll clear this up for you in the next seminar. Also, it doesn't even matter if you increase the amount of weight you're training with, because the acceleration of gravity remains the same no matter how much weight is involved. Therefore, the elastic energy found in resistance bands is what makes them the ideal training device to transfer speed into your muscles. One thing I want to mention to you here is that you cannot use just any type of resistance band. Some bands are too weak regardless of what level of resistance you use, and likewise some bands are just too strong. After using many different types of bands, the ones I found to be most effective are the ones produced by a company by the name of Can-Do. The Can-Do elastic bands, I believe, are the ones that most accurately resemble the elasticity found in your skeletal muscles. And as a result, this makes them the most suitable bands to use when it comes to speed training. These are the ones we supply with our programs and the ones we sell on our website. So if you ever find yourself needing more bands, don't reach for just any band you can find. This may prove to be counterproductive for you, and you may start to lose some of the speed you've gained. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about skeletal muscles. All of them are designed for strength, endurance, and speed. And you might be wondering, how is it that one muscle can perform these different functions? The reason your skeletal muscles can perform different functions is because they are made up of different fiber types. These are your slow twitch fibers, and fast twitch fibers, which everyone seems to be talking about these days. Now, I will discuss these two fiber types in greater detail in the next seminar or two, but for now, the thing we need to understand here is that because our muscles have these two different fiber types, they have to be trained differently. In other words, you cannot train for speed in the same way that you train for strength. But the interesting thing that I've seen when I've looked into a lot of different so-called speed training programs on the internet and in bookstores is that practically all of them are very similar to strength and endurance programs. Some of them are almost identical. But you have to ask yourself, if there are two different fiber types in the body with two different functions, wouldn't you think there should be at least two different ways to train your muscles? Because I certainly think so. I saw this training routine on the web, and I'm going to list for you some of its exercises. Here they are: cable pulls with weights, lunges, squats, and push-ups. Now let me ask you this. What type of athlete or sport do you think this training program was designed for? Some of you might be thinking offensive or defensive linemen in football, and if you are, you're right. Linemen in football do these exercises to help them get stronger to block for the quarterback and open holes for the running backs on offense, or to fight through blocks on defense. But this same information was found on a golfing website, and that website claimed that by doing these exercises, you'll be able to swing a golf club faster. Now, I don't know about you, but this makes absolutely no sense to me. And so I've come to realize that up until now, there has been very little difference in strength programs and what people are advertising as speed programs. And I know this leads to a lot of disappointment for you athletes out there trying to become faster by using them. But this is what makes isometrics with a resistance band so vital to speed training, because the fibers that produce faster muscles respond to this type of training. Fast twitch fibers, which again I'll talk about another time, don't respond to weight training, and they don't respond to plyometric training. In fact, when you do these exercises, you are literally retraining and reprogramming your fast twitch fibers to behave more like slow twitch fibers. Not only will they not make you faster, but they will probably make you slower as well. And this is why you'll always feel wiped out, totally exhausted after doing plyometrics and weight training. These routines strip your muscles of their elastic contracting ability, which makes even doing the simplest routines afterwards, such as washing your hair or brushing your teeth, almost impossible, and likewise shooting baskets or hitting golf balls. However, after you train with our programs, you will immediately start to feel lighter, faster, and more responsive. This is the complete opposite of these strength training programs. And if you read our testimonial page on the website, you will see the excitement in the athletes who have used our programs, because it is such a thrill for them to finally be able to effect such a positive change in their speed and quickness. So a well-rounded training routine really should include speed training as well as strength training, but it'll do you no good if your so-called speed training program is really a strength and endurance program in disguise. And the way to know this is to ask yourself these three questions. Number 1, does your current training routine involve repetitions? Number 2, does your current training routine take longer than 45 minutes to perform? And number 3, do you feel tired, heavy, and sluggish afterwards? In other words, do you feel slower instead of faster when you are finished? And if you answer yes to these three questions, then you do not have a speed training program. You have a strength and endurance program. And I would be willing to bet that a lot of people out there would answer yes to these three questions. Again, what most coaches and athletes do not understand is that muscle speed cannot be developed by training for strength. That is why most athletes are always struggling to increase their speed with little success. Now, it is sometimes said that speed is something you are born with and cannot be developed. If you've heard this, don't believe it for a minute. If you use the resistance band with an isometric training strategy, the way our programs teach, you can actually develop this trait. I've seen it done literally thousands of times, and it's a lot easier than you would ever expect. Now, I'm going to end our discussion on isometric training right here. In the next seminar on slow twitch fibers and slow twitch training programs, I will clarify a lot of what we talked about here today, and hopefully further prove to you how using the resistance band with an isometric training strategy is really the only pure way to train for speed. In the meantime, if you are wondering which program is best for you, Any one of the Run Faster, Kick Farther, Jump Higher, and tennis programs are fantastic to increase your running speed as well as other skills. For upper body speed, we recommend either the baseball, tennis, or golf programs.
Thanks again for tuning in. For athleticquickness.com, I'm Dr. Larry Van Such.